Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon we are with Camilla Degerth, and she's going to help us look at a tool specifically for how to help manage a crisis by yourself. What kind of things to pay attention to, and use it as a coaching method to get you through it. So welcome, Camilla.
Thank you, Eksteen. Very nice to be here today. And I actually have to say that, yes, it's definitely a self-coaching tool, but it also works really well to do group coaching around it, or even to have conversations, for example, host and guest, just to put things out there, get to emotions and things like this. But yes, it was developed as a self-coaching tool because many people really need something physical to hold on to give themselves that space to reflect. And that is so important for us all to do. So yes, self-care in a crisis. It was originally developed during COVID when COVID hit, so to say. We were all in that space where we didn't really know what hit us. And we noticed that me and a colleague at Know You More, we noticed that there was so many resources popping up, but at that time, nothing that was popping up was about actually just caring for yourself and giving yourself that space to talk about emotions or to reflect on emotions. And that's really what drives us. So should I jump in and get on with the tool?
I think, yes, I think
on?
the one thing that I like about this is it reminds me of a tool that we use in negotiation training at Harvard, and that is, it's called the one-pager. So the story goes that there was at Camp David, there was this negotiation, and Yasser Arafat was in the one room, and I think it was Menachem Begin was in the other, and they didn't want to talk to each other. And so Jimmy Carter went in and he gave them a piece of paper and said, write down what you want, but you're only allowed to write down one thing. And so Menachem Begin wrote down one thing, and then he took it to Yasser Arafat, which is the same. And so the negotiation or the conversation began on paper. And so this reminds me of that. So if we get the problems and the discussion on the paper, and we take it, the object's not the person anymore. The object is the discussion.
Yes.
And that's what I like about this.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And just, as you said, one piece of paper, that's actually all it is. I mean, we do extend it a little bit, but it is that one piece of paper. So this is really the tool. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, there was an image going around on LinkedIn that was this image. And we could not find who actually started using this specific image, but so that is stolen in a way, but then we sort of worked on from there.
Let's put it this way. If anybody knows where this comes from, please send us the name and send us a link. And what we'll do is we'll reference it in the comments, in the video section, in YouTube. Not a problem. We'll give credit where credit is due, as long as we know where to give the credit.
Yes, absolutely. We'd love that. And we even address this in our documentation as well, that the image came from somewhere. But what we did was then, add the wording and the process on how to work with this. And, about my fears, what do I notice about myself and about using the word fear? So we got so many people actually reacting to this. But the fact is, what really drives us is fear. And, right now we're talking about a new crisis, right, in Ukraine. It's a war. People are afraid. And without fear, which is a strong emotion, we don't have courage. So that is really what we're playing with, because people are afraid, and noticing what happens with you when that fear happens is quite important. And that's really where we start. You take time to reflect on your emotions. and in this case, perhaps fear. So what happens with you if you are, for example, a Ukrainian person at the moment in Ukraine, or somebody who has left? You know, what are you afraid of? And it can be so many things, right? But what's important is also to think about, so how am I reacting to this fear? How am I behaving? And noticing, just, you know, starting by noticing what happens to me. And I was talking to one person, actually. She had been here in the Netherlands, where I am, for about a month, and we were talking because I had tried to help her find her way in the city, and she got lost all the time. She just couldn't find her way. And then about 2 months later, or a month later, her mother arrives, and she was so surprised because her mother found her way straight away. So we were talking about that. How did this happen? Because, you know, usually the daughter was the one who knew her way around the city. But the fact that she was so stressed by her fears of what was going to happen, that she couldn't focus, she couldn't pay attention to, you know, the road that I was guiding her. While when the mother arrived, she had her daughter to take care of things for her. She knew she just had to rely on her daughter to get her BSN number and all these kind of things. So she had much less stress on her when she arrived. And I think these kind of behaviors are just important to notice so that you understand what's going on within you.
I think it's an important thing there to note as well that we have two sides to fear. That when we're fleeing, or when there's a bomb exploding next to us. Thing is, I spent time in the military, so I've been through some hair-raising experiences, and when the bomb hits, all right, it's adrenaline takes over. So all of a sudden you just need to run, or you need to get to a place, and your body's just focused on getting away. But what we tend to forget is that fear, that is not fear, that is just adrenaline kicking in. The fear starts happening when there's an anticipation of something that can go wrong in the future. So fear always lives in the future, it doesn't live in the present. And it's that fear of what can go wrong. And I think it's important what you said is that we also have different types of fears, and maybe we should start with looking at all the fears that we have and jotting them down first before we see how we react to them. And I think that's a good two-step process you've explained so far, is notice the fears, all right? The fear of being afraid that you might not have a home tomorrow, the fear of living with someone and not knowing what the future will hold, the fear of your family, the fear of maybe a brother or a father or somebody fighting in a war, or somebody that is not with you and you're afraid of what it will mean for their future or for yours and your children's. These are all different types of things that you can note down. And then when you go through them, just feel them. Feel, where do you feel them in your body? Where do you feel them does it sort of like give you a headache, or does it give you shoulder tension? All these kind of things are triggers or ways that our body and our mind responds to fear. So get them on the paper, because then we can see them and then become a little bit more objective.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also important, and perhaps that's part of the next step, but we could, you know, before the war, there were other fears, you know, fear of losing your job, fear of losing your partner, fear of getting ill. And there's learning in that, you know, and perhaps some acceptance that fear always exists. It's just that it's different levels of fear. And I do want to also just mention that this is a coaching tool, and there may be people out there who actually need therapy, and there is a difference between that. And I just want to put it out there because I don't want people to think that, oh, right, I will use this and everything will be fine, because some people actually do need to get help by a professional therapist as well.
I think what's nice about this tool is that it helps us to have conversations between groups. So if you're a mum, or if you're a grandmother, or you've got kids, or you're living with a family, like a hosting family, it's a way to have these conversations about what you're afraid of, what are the things that the host might fear, you know.
Yes.
There's everybody has these fears that get in the way, and having that conversation is really important. It's also a way for us to discover if there's more help that is needed. I mean, with the Coaches for Ukraine initiative, we're not just doing coaching, we also have therapists that can help people. And we will have a session a week after this video airs, specifically about what the differences are between coaching and therapy. And I've got a coach who's also a therapist that's going to be talking about that specifically. So I think one of the important things is just to note, do what you can with what you have, but always be aware that if somebody needs more help, there will be somebody there that can help you. Just reach out either to us or to somebody in your environment, and you'll be surprised at how much help you can actually get.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good thing to notice, I think. And you mentioned, you know, right now we have so many new relationships, and you mentioned host families, and those fears are also important. I know, for example, you know, one family with teenage children, and then they had 2 young Ukrainian people who came to live with them, and they didn't have, you know, school that they could attend for a while, so they were sleeping in. But of course, that then created a huge stress, because the Dutch children were saying, hey, why can't they sleep in? And we have to go to school, they can stay up late at night. So for the parents, this became a fear, right? So all of a sudden they had to shake things up and, you know, make sure that the Ukrainian young people also got out of bed, even though they had nothing specific to do, but just to sort of save the family constellation and the peace in the family. So I think that's a fear that we also have to realize that it's real, even though it may be minor, but it's so important for the relationships that we're building, and when we have people staying with us. Yeah.
I think there's also other fears. For instance, what we talked about too, because we spoke to some hosting families this last week, you and I, and the things about, okay, I thought the people would find another place by now, and I have my kids coming home from university. They might be studying in a foreign country. They're coming home. How am I now going to put up everybody? I thought I had some room, but now I don't have any more, you know. Or something may change in the hosting family situation where they need to take an elderly person back into the house because a dad might have died and the mum needs to come and stay with the family, or, you know, there's constant changes that happen in the world. And all these things will bring its own fears and own stressors with it. And I think we just need to be aware that this will happen, and having the conversation about what it does to you can help us find a way forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this tool is about. I mean, a tool can't do miracles. A conversation and a reflection can't do miracles, but it's more about understanding, you know, what's going on within me. How am I reacting? Why am I snapping at somebody? Why am I getting annoyed and frustrated? And just having that understanding and clarity so that you can move forward, but also then so that you can learn from previous experiences. And that is, once you get to that space where you have enough peace of mind, I guess, or understanding, even though you're in a tough situation, it could be that after a while, some of that stress becomes reduced, and you can start thinking, oh, right, you know, perhaps it's, you know, if I actually take the time to go for a walk, you know, in my previous life, going for a walk was really helpful. Now, allowing me, that doesn't really cost anything. So just allowing myself to do that may be able to deal with some of those emotions that I'm feeling, so that, you know, you take learning from previous experiences to move forward, even within this space.
I think that's one thing that what we tend to call in coaching embodiment, or basically feeling it. Where is it? All right, in your body. A friend of mine, Rinika, is very good at this. So when we feel that emotion or that fear, and we feel that sort of sensation in our bodies, and we can go back to where that we feel that, very often it triggers for us a previous memory. And those previous memories can help guide us to say, well, okay, how did I deal with the situation then? What did I learn from that? And can I reapply it here?
Exactly.
And so that physical part is our link sometimes also to the past.
Yeah. And in this model, of course, this is, you know, what you have in front of you, but there's supporting documentation as well to guide you. So if we look at just what it's about, there is an explanation, as we talked about already, you know, the reactions to a crisis, our thoughts, feelings, and actions. And then it goes into exploring what we already know, so that we can move forward. So we have, again, why do this exercise? What will it do? And directives. So those people who actually sit there and think, okay, I need to take time to reflect. How do I go forward from here? You can look at this. There are instructions on how to do it. And we have also helped with giving some questions. Now, I'm a believer that finding the right questions for you is very important. Otherwise, a tool doesn't really work for you. It doesn't give that effect and impact that you need. But here are some guiding questions in each phase of the model. And what we've been talking mainly about right now is that exploring my fears and touching a little bit about exploring my learning. And I don't think, you know, you don't really need to go all the way, because in a war, in a crisis situation, it's enough to start with the fears and the learning. And when you're ready, you move to the growth. And that could be actually when you've sort of landed and you, perhaps you're ready to look for that job. You're not looking for that job because you're panicking about ending up in the street, because at this point you may have that benefit that you have a right to here. You have housing, perhaps you even have school for your children. And that's when you're starting to get that time to actually move on to exploring the growth and taking those steps out of it. So, and I'm just saying that so people don't feel like they need to go all the way. Just landing and exploring my fears is a great start.
I think for me, it's like when you first learn to drive a car. You can see through the window, you've got a general idea where you want to go, but you can always turn off and go somewhere else. But you first have to get familiar with the dashboard and with the steering wheel. And when we come from a traumatic situation, it's almost like we have to rediscover our way of steering and the way we put something into gear and where the clutch pedal is, you know, and not scraping the gears, you know, because that can happen a few times. And in that process, we practice, we try things, and as we try things, we grow. And I think that's the one thing that all of us can just take one step, just find the next step. Let's say this whole situation we're in is like a storming river. All we need to find is the next stepping stone to get across. We don't have to find everything yet. Just look for the next one to help us move forward.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. A great image. I see those people skipping from one stone to the next and just sort of landing and looking around and thinking, okay, what is the next step for me?
And if they can't find it, you're always welcome to ask someone and go, can you help me find the next step?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really also what we've noticed, right? That people are willing to step up and help. It's touching to see how many people are actually going out of their way to support. We have a family staying with us, and the mother in our guest came home and said, there is a pregnant woman. She's about to give birth. She's just arrived at the center. She has nothing. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So should we help? Should we do a collection? You know, I have connections. So I just put out a small post in our neighborhood group, and we had a mountain of things. You know, people just coming more and more. And I was like, oh my gosh, we could, you know, take care of 4 newborn babies and mothers with this. But, you know, people really do want to help. People are moved, and I think they feel so empowered when they can do something, because that's you know, many people are overwhelmed by this feeling of how can I make a difference. So yeah, that's I think that's beautiful as well. In this horrible situation, we have to find the beauty.
I think it's nice when I don't know, as you said, it's overwhelming on the one hand, and this overriding fear that, I mean, this fear for people, is the war going to extend? Is it going to lead to something that escalates? How far will it escalate? You know, all these kind of fears are constantly running through everybody, and at the same time, we find meaning in doing something for someone else. Kostya also asked me, that runs this initiative with me, asked me, so why are you doing this? You're not Ukrainian. You're not even born in Europe. This is just strange. Why do you do this? Like, but it just feels like I cannot not do it. It's just, and it's a way for me to give something and help out. And so I think there's a lot of people that want to do that. And so providing the opportunity, giving that opportunity, is something that all of us can benefit from. I'm just going to pause for 1 second because my husband just walked through the door and everything's making a real big noise. I just want to quickly close the doors. There we go. Sorry, we'll edit that bit out. I think everybody wants to contribute, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And you know, now we've been talking a little bit more about everybody, and I think it's important here. We start talking about self-care in general, and I did mention it about going for a walk, but figuring out what is the self-care that you need to get through this is important. And you know, often in this situation, it's mothers with children, and children where they might have had support from a husband or, you know, relatives or something like that, and right now they're on their own with children, no daycare, nothing like that. And you know, that is hard in normal situations. So I really want to say that taking the time to realize that you deserve to rest for a bit, even though your husband may be fighting and you may be scared for his life, you are also fighting as a mother in a foreign country with your children. So allowing everybody, not only the mothers, to take a moment just to rest and to, does that mean read a book? Does it mean just trying to sleep, finding a bench in nature to just sit down and do absolutely nothing? Whatever it is, listen to some music. Remember what's important to you and how you deal with, you know, strong emotions to get back into balance, because you deserve it. And it's the only way we can build that energy to take on tomorrow and whatever challenges that may bring. That's by giving ourselves that boost of energy right now. And I guess that's what it's about.
Yes, and I think also that there's 2 things I want to just highlight here. One of the things with fear is it builds up cortisol in the body, which is our stress hormone. And one of the counters for that is oxytocin, which is our relationship hormone. So if you can do something nice for someone else, it in essence triggers a little bit of an oxytocin release, but also the person receiving it gets that, and everybody seeing it. So when you're in a hosting family or you have guests in your house, try and find small little things that you can do for each other. It starts with, can I get you a cup of coffee? Would you like a cup of tea? Can I get you a glass of water? Just try and find little ways of helping each other. Also inquire what the other person needs. Don't just give them something they may not want, okay? Because that works counterproductive. But by finding these small little things you can do for each other, we get these hormonal releases that help us connect better. And when we connect, those stressors and those fears become a little bit less. And so that would be a tip from my side for people that are in these kind of situations.
Yeah, we have this, the 6-year-old girl staying with us. She knows a few phrases in English, and enjoy your meal is one of those. And I mean, she has just given us so much joy, because every time she sits down, she looks at everybody and says, enjoy your meal, enjoy your meal. And it sort of allows all of us to stop and smile. So she's really been a gift in that sense.
I think it's another thing we can also try and do is at the end of the day, one of the things that there's some research shown is things like a gratitude exercise can have similar benefits to things like serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So basically antidepressive drugs. And so at the end of the day, just sitting together and going, what are you thankful for? Can also help to create those slightly more elevated moods, and over time it creates a bond, and at the same time it also helps us to elevate moods and be slightly less depressive. It's not going to cure anybody of anything severe, but it helps us to move forward and to find more joy in every day, each day.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see, I will jump a little bit. Yeah, there's so we also have examples just to get people started if people are stuck, but I'm going to jump forward a little bit to, and of course this specific PowerPoint that I'm using right now doesn't have it. The printable resources came after this, and that is the section where regular reflection comes out. Because as you said, you know, you're not done when you look through this model once. This is about regular reflection. So in the printable resources, which is in the file that we share, there is another one that, you know, it says basically, bring this out every week. Look it through, you know, if you notice then that, okay, I'm going to use my example. Going for a walk is helpful to reduce your stress levels. Then allow that. Go for a walk every day. See how it changes your emotions and your reactions, and also how others see you, because those reactions, they influence everybody, right? So for example, if I use myself again, if I show up stressed and I'm snapping at people, how helpful is that going to be to my guest who is actually going around already with their own stresses and fears, and perhaps they think that the snappiness is about them. So I think this, you know, this tool is really about everybody, and noticing how is my behavior also influencing others. So if I work on that, if I work on my snappiness, for example, as a host, how will that influence everything? So I think it's very important to bring it out, as you said, if that is a gratitude journal every evening, or if it is regular reflection, perhaps once a week, but just coming back so that you notice on how are things changing, and how is that influencing everybody else around you as well, because yeah, it's contagious, right? That fear and that happiness and everything that we share. Seeing your smile now, I'm thinking about you know, even if we're not happy, we can still smile, because that will completely set the tone of the dinner conversation, for example. So, yeah.
I think another thing to realize is with we were talking about cortisol earlier, and there's also been studies done on the effects it has on cognitive empathy, for instance, your ability to see how other people feel, and on your prefrontal cortex, which is basically your executive functions, your ability to think logically and structure information. And when we're stressed, we tend to be much more focused. So we tend to end up focusing on one thing. So things like, I need to get medical aid, but in the meantime, you need to first focus on getting your social security number, your BSN number, before you can get that. So you sort of like, you might have the wrong order, but you're so stuck on one thing. And so when people have this kind of behavior, we need to understand that this comes from them being in a stress situation. This is not them being stupid, obtuse, irritable, annoying. It's just part of stress.
Yeah.
And it also means that our ability to deal with stressors or with triggers that come at us is reduced, and our ability to retain our emotions so we don't overreact is also affected when we're under stress. Our ability to think creatively, structure information, logically order things in a plan, setting priorities, so changing stuff around, starting tasks, all these things are part of executive functions. All of them are affected the moment we're under stress. So when people that are your guests are exhibiting behavior where you go like, this is weird or this is overboard, understand that this is not the person, but it's the situation they find themselves in, and it is an overreaction, and it is not controllable. It's not logical. So you need to give them room, help them to just find a moment to breathe, find a way to get the stress under control, get the fears a little bit under control, and you'll see them change as that happens. It is quite beautiful to see, because I work with teams in stress every day. It's my job. And when you start seeing the stress go down and the connections form and people sort of, I'd like to call it almost like flower, you know, it's like a flower unfolding, and all of a sudden you start seeing the beauty in the person, and it's not just the thorns anymore that is showing, because the person's able to show their vulnerability, show who they really are.
Yeah.
And I think we can all help each other to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to notice that little thing that takes them over the edge when they're stressed, where everything sort of falls apart. It can be the smallest thing, and that's, you know, just to give them a hug, or, you know, I don't know what that relationship is with the people that you know, but sometimes, you know, a hug can go so far. You don't have to say a word, just be there. And if putting your hand on someone's arm is better in that relationship, but that human connection and just being there with somebody can also be so powerful, actually. Yeah. So it's the small things.
It's a little trick I do with my husband. When COVID hit, we were also getting really, I mean, both of us were stranded at home, and we were getting on each other's nerves. Is that a good way of putting it? I can think of a few more rude ways to put it, but you get to the point where you sort of feel like, I want to kill you right now. And one of the things we decided to do is to play with hugs. And so it's a case of anybody can ask, I need a hug. And the person that asks for the hug is the person that determines how long it's going to be, what kind of hug it's going to be, and so on. And the other person just gives what is asked. No more, no less, just what is asked. To also create that sense of, I'm in control, and I'm not relinquishing my control in the process of looking for that connection.
Yeah.
And so we've both learned how to just be there in the moment for the other person without trying to make the hug last longer than is necessary, you know, or anything else. It's just that one solid moment. Because my mum used to say, a hug never lies. It's just two people being there in the moment together.
Yeah. And if we're going to use that metaphor of the hug is really, you know, this tool is about first noticing, I don't feel great right now. Then it's, okay, what do I need? Yes, I need a hug. And then in the extent, just having that awareness, when I don't feel great, I can fix everything with a hug. And of course, that is simplifying things quite a lot. But that is really the process of what this tool is about. But of course, it's a lot more complicated than that. And the whole reason we made the tool is it's so hard to talk about emotion and to put it out there. And when you're then trying to push all the emotions away, we hope that this tool can put them back into your awareness. We hope that this tool can make it a topic that people who wouldn't feel comfortable talking about emotions with each other can still do, because the tool asks for it. And yeah, so in group constellations or between hosts. So that's what it's about. And I hope, because it's translated into a few languages, and Ukrainian being one of them, that it can be useful for many people out there.
I think that's a great thing, that it's this availability of all of this. I think is really fantastic. I also think that when we use things like this tool, we should give ourselves a little bit of slack, because if we start with, this is where I'm at the moment, this is what I'm having difficulty is, this is what I need, we need to understand this is what I'm thinking that I'm needing right now. But it could be that is eventually misidentified and you need to try something else. So rather see it as an experiment, you know, I think I need this, can you give this to me, let's see where it goes, you know. And again, try it a few times. If it's not the right thing for you, your mind will be working in the back in mind, and your subconscious will be going, and you'll go, oh no, it's actually something else. All right. And figuring that out is part of this process, because the faster you can figure it out, the faster you can get what you need to make yourself feel better. But it takes some time, and be patient with yourself and forgive yourself, because no one is perfect. And in situations like this, we're all going to make mistakes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I think that was a perfect summary and a conclusion to what is the most important thing with this tool.
So I would like to say, Camilla, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and helping us with this tool. We will have that as a resource link to Dropbox or Google Drive or something similar in the YouTube link below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more videos, because it's always handy to have more information that can help you settle in the country that you're currently in. We currently have a lot of videos available for the Netherlands. Please make use of the resource. You're always welcome to also contact us. We're on Facebook at Coaches4Ukraine, and you can find us there. Thank you and have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.